Okay, we are going to get started. I just want to welcome everyone. I want to note that closed captioning is available at the bottom of the screen using the live transcript button. So my name is Adam Pearl. I am president and CEO of ArtPride New Jersey. For those of you that I don't know, welcome to ArtPride's July webinar. So glad to have you. So I have a virtual background, but I am coming to you from Margate, New Jersey on Absecon Island, which we absolutely should note is the ancestral home of the Lenape Indians. For those of you that are visually impaired, I am a early 40s white cisgender male. I use he, him pronouns. This morning, I'm wearing a light blue shirt. I have short brown hair and brown eyes. And my virtual background is the beach here in Margate. So quickly, just a couple logistical items before we get started on the information you're all here for. We will be probably using the chat feature, so familiarize yourself with the buttons at the bottom of the screen. Certainly, if you have questions, submit them via the Q&A feature. That's the best way for us to take questions. We have a lot of information this morning, so I can assure you that this is being recorded and that we will upload this webinar to the website later today. Usually comes out later today in case unless there's any technical glitches, but we will record this. We are recording this and we will upload this. So now, without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to my colleague, Anne-Marie Miller, our ArtPride's Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, with tons of information and good news.
Good morning, everybody. And I'm waiting for Vince to start the slideshow because I am not gonna freeze my computer today. He's gonna be in charge, and thanks, Vince, for doing this for us. So it's been a month and a lot has changed within a month. And next slide. The very first thing is the fact that with our update is the fact that the state budget for fiscal year 2022 was passed. The governor signed it, and there is $31.9 million in cultural project support that will be awarded through the State Arts Council. This is landmark funding for the arts in New Jersey, and actually is honoring legislation that was passed in January 2020 that makes this the new minimum appropriation for the arts, and higher levels as well for history and tourism. What you should know is that there were several line item appropriations, not as many as I kind of expected, but at the same time, a couple really large ones, well, actually one super huge large one, which was $24 million for the Jersey City Museum project, $5 million for Newark Symphony Hall infrastructure. The rest you see here, $100,000 for Capitol Philharmonic of New Jersey, which is based in Trenton, $100,000 for the New Jersey Council on the Humanities, which is the first time in many years that the Humanities Council has gotten an appropriation, and $50,000 for the Basie Center in Red Bank. The Jersey City Museum project is, if I'm hoping you're familiar with it and have seen in the news, that the city is working with the Pompidou Center in France to have a satellite location in Journal Square in Jersey City. And there will be renovations to the building, and this appropriation basically is for $6 million over 4 years to do the programming and maintain programs at the this museum when, in fact, it is renovated and it is available to the public. Next slide. So, yeah, I couldn't resist fireworks. 4th of July just happened, so this is like, let's clap, and I'm doing my sort of happy dance in the chair right here. That this is a historic appropriation for the arts, and couldn't resist doing the fireworks slide. So next slide. is a big thank you to all the arts advocates, for the history advocates, for the tourism advocates, for everybody who contacted their legislators. And this has been a long process. It's many, many years of making sure that our legislators not only value and appreciate the arts in our state, but also realize that they've been underfunded and that there is need to maintain them and their infrastructure. Adam, you're there. You want to say something?
I want to thank you, Anne Marie. You know I'm going to do that. I want to thank you, to start for being a shepherd. It might have felt like we wandered 40 years through the desert, but we found our way. No, I really just truly appreciate your persistence, your perseverance. You found every way to make this happen. And you never gave up, and we all appreciate that. I think I speak for everyone on this call and everyone around the state. And then, like you said, the advocates and everyone, in particular, the ArtPride staff. Obviously the rest of the staff. Jim, Corey, Emily, Vince, and Megan, and the entire board as well too. Many of them, those advocates that you speak of, but none of this happens without your leadership. So I was just popping on to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your thanks. And, yeah, it's been a long battle, but we got there and we should all be grateful. And next slide, please. So we do have an action alert up on the ArtPride website. There's the link for it. And it is time to say thank you. And I am encouraged by the number of people who actually have taken advantage of this. It's about 1,000 people right now, and we can grow that number because it's really, really important for them to understand that you appreciate this funding and that it is really critical to the arts recovery right now. And I think, this is a perfect time for folks to, they're running for election. We'll get to that at some point later. They're all running for election this fall. So this is a good time to remind them of how you're going to use that funding, when it comes to you, and how important it is for recovery of the arts. So please use this action alert and continue, because we can advocate for a very long time, but if we don't say thank you, we have not finished. And we will continue to have to monitor this appropriation and make sure that it stays at the level that it's supposed to be at. But thank you is a really big part. Next slide, please. So where's the money going to go? And it goes to, the 31.9 million goes to the State Arts Council to awarding grants. And I just wanted to make sure that you all had this on your calendars. I'm sure you did, because I think the email went out from the council yesterday. They have a Zoom meeting coming up on the 27th of July. The meeting agenda will be up on their website. There's the link for the website. So please make sure that you attend. Next slide. So what else is going on? Through the work of the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Working Group, and a lot of close contact with the governor's council of business advisors, we're able to get some rapid COVID tests available for groups, arts groups that need them, through Becton Dickinson, which has made a limited number of Veritor rapid tests available for arts organizations. It does not require a healthcare professional to administer them, and there is training available through links that we can provide to you. And so they can offer up to 48 kits to one location and FedEx them so you can receive them in the same week. So please email me if you're interested in or you need them, and we'll get you on the list. I know the Arts Council did an email in May asking groups. We worked with those that have actually responded first on need, but if there are others, please contact me and let me know. Next slide. So here we go, our American Rescue Plan. So these are the NEA grants available to arts organizations, and there are also grants for sub-granting to to local arts agencies to subgrant even further locally. So this is the information on the grants directly to arts and cultural organizations. And that deadline is in August. Next slide, please. And then this is the one for subgrants to local arts agencies. And what I'm just going to do is review a little bit about these grants and sort of the generic guidelines that apply to both of them. Next slide. So this is a structure that the NEA offers. And basically they've already appropriated 40% of the $135 million that they got through the American Rescue Plan to the state and regional arts agencies. And the 60% now are through these two grant programs. And they're trying to extend the reach of their funding. And these 60% grants, are available to groups that may not have applied to the NEA in the past. So they're opening the gate pretty wide on this. Next slide, please. So of that $135 million, 875,600 through that 40% that I just talked about goes to the State Arts Council, and part of that 40% also, there's 1.154 million to the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation. And they will be awarding that funding as they find most appropriate. Adam, you got a question?
Yeah, yes. Teresa, stop. Hi, Teresa. Had a question. Teresa was asking if can a local arts agency apply for both NEA grants?
Yes. Yeah. And next slide. That's a short answer. So people will say yes. These are the application dates so that you have information on this. All requires you to be registered with SAM.gov and also with grants.gov through the portal that's available for federal funding. So and all NEA grants go through a step 1 and a step 2. And a step 1 is basically a 1-page application that it asks for very cursory information, and that has to get in by the step 1 deadline. The step 2 deadline, the step 2 piece actually is a portal that opens up after you've gone through step 1. You'll get an email saying the portal will be open for you to enter all your information, and basically the information is available in advance at the arts.gov site for organizations and for local arts agencies. You can get all the questions in advance so that you can prepare your narratives, your budget, et cetera, all in advance, and then go in when the step 2 portal opens and enter all that information. Next slide, please. So they are having live Q&A sessions for all these dates, and you can find this all at arts.gov/ARP-grants. Next slide. So this gives you some of the generals on both grants. There are levels that you can request: 150,000, 250,000, 500,000, and this is for subgranting and also for direct awards to arts organizations. Selecting the requested amount, it's like, well, what do I ask for? Which one? Really, the NEA encourages applicants to select an amount that is reflective of their overall organizational size and internal capacity. So basically, they want to know that you can handle this amount of money, what it's exactly for. It all, and most of this funding is operating support. And we'll get into a little bit of that too. Another question, Adam? Up, muted.
Trying to be careful about that. So another question from Phoebe Pollinger. So Phoebe was asking, are you encouraging the counties to apply for the quote unquote local arts agency grants?
Yeah, and we can get into that a little bit too. So next, the one thing is there is no match required. So that's really important this time around. So these are a little bit more of the guidelines that apply to both categories, the direct grants and the local arts agency subgranting. You have to have federal tax exempt status, 3-year history of programming, and be current on all your NEA grant reporting. You must be registered with SAM.gov and grants.gov, just like I mentioned. For local arts agencies that apply to subgrant, and they said that they expect to make approximately 80 awards. So that gives you an idea. That's like nationwide, right? You must be a unit of city or county government or a designated agency, and they will ask you for documentation that you are, if you are not a unit of city or county government, which goes to Phoebe's question, you know, county arts and historical, you know, county cultural agencies are already units of county government, so they can go right in and make this application. If you are a nonprofit and you're designated to do that, I would say that probably applies to an organization, say like Newark Arts. You know, you have to have documentation from the city that you are designated to do this. You must have a history of grant making, which means at least once over a 10-year period. So it doesn't have to be every year over the past 10 years. And they will ask you to answer 4 questions in 4 paragraphs. Talk about your history of grant making, your selection process, who your applicant pool is, and the grantees that you serve, you know, describing all of that. Next slide, please. So the NEA ARP grants have 2 main goals. One is to preserve jobs, and the other is to expand the access to funds. So preserving jobs is really, really critical here. And so I encourage folks, if they're looking to increase their capacity at this point and to hire more people, that this is an excellent opportunity for that. Next slide, please. So now we get into shuttered venues operator grants. And I just wanted to give you this because this is another federal, I know this doesn't apply to everybody, but it's interesting and it gives you sort of an overview of what's going on right now. This information is as of Tuesday. So this is the most current information given by the Small Business Administration. So it just gives you an idea of, you know, the total number of applications submitted, how many awards have been made to date, the amount of those awards, and what the stage of review is, because this has been a really slow process, muddled with tons and tons of documentation, and not only a slow process, but a really clumsily handled process where folks have been waiting and uncertain of where their application is in review. What I do know from the data that they've submitted is that New Jersey, so far, 91 grants have been administered for a total of over $51 million. Next slide, please. So this also gives you, is this the same? No, it's not the same. It's very close to the slide previous, but 74% have been decisioned. Next slide, please. This is, I think I repeated the slide. This gives you an idea of the venue type. So live venue operators perform, you know, where do performing arts organizations, you know, factor into all of this? Motion picture theater operators, museums, and theatrical producers. I thought that was pretty interesting to see. Next slide, please. So now we get into, okay, so now that we know what the NEA is going to do, right? We don't know yet what Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation is going to do with their ARP funding, and we will learn soon, I'm sure, what the State Arts Council will do with their ARP funding. There is a lot of local and county money available, and this is sort of our plan to try to give you some tips as to how to access that. Next slide, please. So these are the things you need to know about the American Rescue Plan. It's not community development block grants. This is a brand new source of support. No matter what anybody tells you, the money is not all spent. There is time to plan. Half of the funds will arrive in next year. Local governments have until 2026 to spend ARP funds, and that spending guidelines do include equity, but there is no grant application outside of the NEA funding that we just described. So really, what does that mean? Next slide, please. It means that we're back to Advocacy 101 a little bit. It means that there are things that you can do to try to access some of that local and county funding. Is to research local planning, find out if your county or municipality is receiving ARP funds. There are allocations specifically for counties and also allocations for metropolitan cities. And there are links to this in a document that I'll share with you at the very end. For cities with populations under $50,000, under 50,000 population, requests have to be made through the state. But it's up to you to really do the research. Is there a form of community engagement right now? Are there public planning meetings? Are there town halls? And if they're not, like, you need to find out and ask why not, and will there be community engagement? Next slide, please. It's going to take a little bit of power mapping for this. It's to learn who are the decision makers and have real conversations with them. And who are those decision makers? County executives and comptrollers, county commissioners, liaisons to county cultural and heritage agencies who are commissioners, no longer freeholders, county commissioners, mayors and local municipal elected officials, town council members. Is there a decision maker who can be your champion and talk about the arts? And if you don't know a government leader, do you know someone who does? So to give you an example, I sat in on a town hall meeting with Congresswoman Cheryl last night, and there was a mayor from Bloomfield on the call, Michael Venezia, who said, and we are having money for local businesses include and arts and education. He actually mentioned arts. Okay, so it's like, okay, there's a person to contact in Bloomfield and say, all right, so what does that mean? What are your plans? Do you have plans? How can I be part of that? Next question, next slide. Next thing is to have your wish list ready. Is you don't want to go into a conversation and just say, well, I don't know, what we need money for programming. Exactly what is it that you want to do? Outline your needs and estimate how much they're going to cost. You don't have to have the exact numbers, but just, estimating is helpful. Consider your infrastructure, administration, planning for programs coming up in the future. Consider your relationships to travel, tourism, and hospitality industries, because they are also keenly mentioned in the American Rescue Plan as industries that are disproportionately affected by COVID. Think about partners. Think about your business improvement districts, your chambers of commerce. When you're doing your power mapping, do you know somebody who can do that? Okay, making the case. All I'm going to do is just say, these are not grants. You're not going to be applying for things as you would for an Arts Council grant. You're going to be having conversations with people to talk about, how do you see the arts? How do you see American Rescue Plan funding pertaining to the arts in my town or in my county? And again, going back to making your plan, I have a program for arts-related activities coming up for celebrating New Jersey's 250th anniversary in 2 years. We want to do this festival, and it's going to bring in jobs, it's going to bring in tourism, great idea. Let's figure out how much it costs, and you're going to be working with government to do this. Making the case, explain how the arts fit into the ARP guidelines. Going back to what we said about the NEA, access on a local level, job creation, okay? How is it going to affect your local economies? Explain how they fit into the guidelines. And also, again, I mentioned travel, tourism, hospitality is disproportionately affected by COVID, but it came up in that town hall phone call last night. The arts have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. Okay, next slide, please. So the creative industries, I don't really need to tell most of the advocates about this. They know that their creative industries are already directly tied to travel, tourism, and hospitality. A healthy arts and cultural corridor benefits all the businesses and aids in recovery for all those industries, including restaurants, retail, lodging, and catering. Next slide. And job creation. So talking about the fact that arts workers are real workers. You can go back to the county data on Keep Jersey Arts Alive, where we actually talk about the jobs in each county that are related to the creative industries and are related to the grants that have been awarded through government funding. This is also an opportunity, and this piece I missed actually in this is the fact that ARP funding can go towards capital improvements of cultural institutions and all of the things that are needed to upgrade cultural institutions now that we have a life that we have to deal with COVID on a daily basis. If you have to have touchless ticketing, touchless, bathrooms and restrooms, and you're adding more seating or you're adding increased exits and entrance in your facility, all of those things apply. And the fact that the arts and cultural sector has long been undercapitalized. We all know this. It's a time to invest in the future. And this rescue plan is all about recovery and also about creating an equitable vision for American culture. So it's about how are you reaching folks in your community, all of your community. So next slide, please. And then this is actually kind of it, and we can do the questions right after this. All of those points are now available on artprideng.org/public value, part of Keep Jersey Arts Alive. There's a link at the very end under resources, and you can pull up this document. And in the document are links, because it's a PDF, for the cities and the counties, the lists of the amount of funding going through from the American Rescue Plan to all of the municipalities in our state and all the counties in our state. So Adam, if you have questions, ready. And we'll go back to the slides. There are a couple more slides.
Okay, let me just bring it up. There was just one question that popped up, Anne-Marie. It's from Mark Schaefer. And some other questions are coming in too. Great. So Mark was asking, the Folk Project met all the criteria for an SVOG, except that they're all volunteer and don't have even one employee. Are any of these grants that you've discussed today available for all volunteer organizations? For Mark says for purely arts purposes and not job creation.
That's a good question. I guess, and my immediate reaction to that is I'm not sure. I know that's a question that pops up, and if you can give me Mark's information, I can send him. Sure. There was a really, really good video webinar that was done last week on the Americans for the Arts website with the NEA in particular, and that question was asked. What's interesting actually about the NEA grants and the sub-grants are that the sub-grants can go to volunteer organizations. Okay, you have to have 501c3, but you can, what you can fund are art services delivered by artists. So, and that's a really interesting piece that I didn't mention. And what does that mean, services delivered by artists? It has to be something, it can be a festival, it can be a choreographed performance, it can be something specific that can be evaluated on the back of, say, artistic merit. So it can be a commission for a public art project. It can be, so it can trail down to individual artists that way. So that, but, as far as all volunteer organization, I'm not sure I can answer that question.
So I guess that's there's another question or two that popped up here, but the larger question is, because so many of our partners around the state are different shapes and sizes to this point exactly, where's the best place for folks to go to determine their eligibility for those NEA ARP grants?
So, okay, I would go, there's a couple of things. I would go to the NEA, the arts.gov site. They have a whole list of eligibility requirements, and they also have a list for the local arts organizations of what they can, what's eligible for them to subgrant for. So, you know, it's very clear. They've gone through a lot of detail on this. So I would recommend going to them. And under the grants, so you would go arts.gov, go to grants, and then it's grants to arts organizations, and then it lists the eligibility there.
Great. I think that's it for questions right now, Anne-Marie.
So yeah, so we go back to the rest of our slides. Thanks, Adam. We have a few things up I wanted to point out on our website. We are still looking for freelance podcast host producers, freelance correspondents and producers, and freelance videographers. So if you are interested, please go to that link, artpridenj.org/job-opportunities, and you can click on any of those buttons to see the job description and offer resumes information to apply for those jobs. Next slide. And then just a reminder, jerseyarts.com, summer stages is up. You know, please visit. Maybe you're missing something that's happening in your backyard that you can attend. Things are beginning to open up, and this is, you know, a great way to find what's going on. Next slide. Oh, and this is it. This is the last one. So our next webinar is coming up on August 12th. And that's a whole month from now. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Adam, for doing this from Margate. Wish I was in Margate right now. I want to thank Vince for doing the slides in the background. Wish Vince an early happy birthday. His birthday is tomorrow. He's been an incredible help and incredible member of our team at ArtPride.
Anne-Marie, we had one question sneak in here, which is actually a good one. So someone, it's an anonymous, but they said, you mentioned small cities should go directly to the state for the ARP funding request. To whom, what agency should a nonprofit in a less than 50,000 resident city apply? So, I mean, I think the first thing is, don't forget about your county. You know, so, you know, think about the partners that you can work with on the county. But if they're thinking about a municipality that's less than 50,000, any idea how that's going to manifest?
Okay, wait a minute. I see two questions. So, okay, who do you go through to the state? My first reaction to find out who you go to through the state would be Economic Development Authority. That would be my first reaction. To find, if you're a small town looking for ARP funding, would be go to EDA. I think it's EDA.org.
But
NJEDA.org.
But you still, in that case, if you're a small, like, so basically municipalities with 50,000 or more are getting appropriations. Under
Right.
50,000, those municipalities are going to have to make a request to the state. You still need to do that work on your local level to go to local officials with your other arts partners or business partners, tourism partners, and come together and say, this is what our need is on a local level. And what Anne-Marie's talking about is having that conversation now, so that whatever that, because almost every town is going to ask for something, right? You know, that more than likely. The point is to be part of that conversation, to say part of what we're asking for is for the arts, because here's our need. Here's our need on the local level.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to Chris's question here too, Anne-Marie, which is, you know, Chris was asking questions, still not clear who to apply to, you know, wait until a local arts group has funding. You don't want to wait. What you want to do is start having those conversations, because what we know is the money's coming, but how it's being spent on a local level is being decided right now. And you need to be part of those conversations to say the arts need this. And you need to, whether that's county commissioners, there's county executives, it's your local mayors, it's your other partners. So there's collaboration that needs to happen on the local level so that you can get your piece of the pie. It hasn't been decided yet.
Exactly. And it will be the city making the request from the state, not you making the request for your city, you know, to the state. So the thing is, American Rescue Plan funding is going to go to a lot of different things, a lot of infrastructure. There's going to be, you know, pipes and transportation, roads, all of that. And basically, if you don't tell your local people that the arts are important, they don't know. The demand's not there, so the money gets used for other things if you don't raise your voice that the arts are important in your town. And so, it's just like anything else. I mean, to get to $31.9 million, we have to work overtime to tell them that the arts are important. And then the same thing now for the state to get their share of American Rescue Plan money, we're going to have to continue the same advocacy to say, listen, the arts are important. The recovery is going to take a really long time. We need money, coming into the state specifically for arts funding. And, that's the ongoing advocacy now that we have to go through. So, I wouldn't wait for anything.
No.
It's like, just like you said, and listening to that mayor last night, was like, they get it. They know that they need the arts in their towns to make things happen again. The restaurants aren't going to be full until there's something going on at the theater down the street, right? So the mayors get it. You can work with them, whether they're a small town mayor or a large city, but the idea is just telling them that it's important.
And the other thing I would add is I know that so many of our advocates have these relationships with mayors, with county folks, with folks in the state legislature. And so now is the time to reach out to those, to those elected officials, as well as to the partners, your partners in the schools, the other arts organizations, the hospitality partners. But I will also say, if you're in a position where you want to do this outreach and you're not sure who to work with, reach out to us, reach out to me or Anne Marie. If you don't know your county organization, if you don't have a relationship with your mayor, reach out to us. Maybe we know them. Maybe we know somebody who knows them. That is part of what we can assist. It's not just the information and the tools and the data to help you make that case. If you need a connection and you don't have that, reach out to us and we'll help facilitate that. That's part of what we're doing.
And Erica makes a really good point. Like Arts Ed New Jersey, they're using, their banner is, the schools are getting all this ESSER money, right? It's through American Rescue Plan money, but you don't get it unless you ask for it, and that is really the bottom line key. It's like, you need to make your voices heard. I mean, and that's what we're all about. I mean, we keep drumming that drum for as long as we need to.
Amory, do you see the comment in the chat there from Erica?
Yeah.
I feel like as a
Yep.
as a representative from Arts Ed NJ, I don't know if you want to read that or you want me to.
No, there are a lot of it is earmarked for social emotional learning, and districts may need a reminder about how important the arts are to social emotional learning. It's absolutely true. The mental health benefits that are rendered through the arts, and there is a considerable amount of funding in the American Rescue Plan designated specifically for mental health assistance. I see there's another, as an artist and business owner, I began events for the arts throughout New Jersey with no help. I've conducted 5 events so far, and previously I spent all out of pocket and have contacted ArtPride and no council on the arts for help. I would like to continue this event forever as a standard event, as a summer program for children, teens, and adults. Also trying to establish my town's art gallery. I am in Somerville, Arts in the Park. Absolutely. Well, there's a Somerset County Cultural and Heritage Commission.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, I can't remember Caitlin's, but we can certainly put you in touch.
So, James, and I am a Somerset County resident. I live in Bridgewater. So I believe we have your email from you registering for the event. So I'm going to reach out to you and we can have a conversation offline about how we can help each other.
And I know Caitlin's already on this as far as American Rescue Plan money. We've been talking.
Yes.
So she is like not sitting still. She's like looking ahead. Anything else? I think that's it. And we're done for July, right, Adam?
Yeah, we're done for July. So thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate it. Stay tuned. And we'll continue to be in touch as the summer goes on. I will add that the August 12th webinar, given Emery's taking vacation, and I'll be here with Jim Atkinson, our Director of Programs and Services. We're going to give an update on how Summer Stages is going so far, and they're also going to give information about the fall reopening campaign, which is going to be one of the largest Discover Jersey Arts campaigns in quite some time. So the August 12th webinar should be really interesting.
If you need a refresher, go to Keep Jersey Arts Alive, go to, artpridej.org/public value. Click on that and it refreshes all the points that we have from today. Thanks, everybody, and keep at it.
Take care, everyone.